गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वती नामिने। श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दायिताय कृपात्रये कृष्ण संबंध विज्ञान दायिने प्रभवे नमः। माधुर्योज्जल प्रेमाद्य श्री रूपानुगमक्तिदा श्री गौर करुणा शक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते। नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुग विरुद्धाप सिद्धांत द्वंद्वहारिणे। नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्ब साम्बोधे पदाम्बुजायते नमः। नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानन्दाय गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपानुगवरायते। गौरविर्भावभूमिस्त्वं निर्देष्ट सज्जनप्रिय वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतिशे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। जयतां सुरतो पङ्गौर्महमन्दामतर्गति मत्सर्वस्व पदाम्बोजो राधामदनमोहनं। दिव्याद्वृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमादः श्रीमद्रत्नाकर सिंहासनस्थं श्रीमद्राधा श्रीगोविन्ददेवो प्रेष्ठाय सेव्यमानो स्मरामि। श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भी वंशीवटतटस्थितः कर्षणवेणुसहैर् गोपी गोपीनाथाय श्रीयस्तु नः। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। So we are talking on, we'll try to discuss on this particular topic today. I kind of titled it as Samskaras in Education because I really didn't know what was the best title to it. But basically it is from this book of Defeating Vatsasur by Prithivardhan Prabhu, who is part of the Bhaktivedanta Academy of Mayapur Guru. So it's a very, very nicely written book. It is full of realizations of a devotee who has practiced Krishna consciousness for over 20 years. So I've just tried to take some whatever drops I could understand from that, put it down for discussion, which will be relevant to everybody, not just limited to education as such, but to any devotee. Actually, all these things that he makes, the points that he makes are really applicable. So let's begin. So the outline of the contents of the discussion for today, we have 4 points actually. One is certain principles of education. It's not actually important, it's actually principles of education. Then something about the Vatsasur demon and the article of Saraswati Thakur related to it. The importance of Nishtha Bhakti, effect of Samskaras, and a very interesting understanding of the modes of nature. And how does everybody in general get purified? So these are the outlines. So as I told you, it has applications not just to just education in general, but to actually everybody. So he makes really some very interesting points. So what I am going to do is, in each of these main points which I have outlined 4 sub-points in each. So basically we are going to discuss some 16 points and that's it. So that's like the essence of what he's talking, which is very valuable in several ways. So that's all what we're going to discuss. There's 16, I mean these 4 main points, each of them will have 4 sub-points. And in each of the sub-points there are many interesting lessons, and also we will need discussion, at certain points. Because certain concepts he has presented in a very different way, or we are encountering it for the first time like this. So that's why we will need discussion. So he starts off by talking about principles of education and the importance of relation with Guru. So that means he says that how in the Vedic tradition in general, the relationship was considered very important. Actually, I would have loved to have made slides where one by one the line comes in. That's actually fashionable. But I made this in the last 1 hour, to be very honest with you. So, and I didn't know how to manage all that stuff very quickly, so I've just typed up things. This is not the best way to put up. So later I will do that some other time. So he says, my request is, okay, one second, I'll just do one thing, just to help everyone. So my request is just, we can just focus on the one by one the points. So currently ignore the rest as not relevant immediately. So first thing that he talks about is, in general in the Vedic tradition, there was a lot of emphasis on this relationship with the teacher. Not just from the child and Gurukul system, but for everybody. Relationship was considered very important. That means a personal relation was considered extremely important. He argues that in great detail, why it was considered important. So the thing is, so basically this comes from one Prabhupada's quote actually, which he elaborates in great detail. So the basic point is that if somebody has, because the guru-disciple relationship is something where the disciple has to sacrifice for the cause of the guru. Right? I mean that's the general thing. Like we see Krishna and Sudama. They are sacrificing a lot for Sandipani Muni. And that's why Sandipani Muni is very pleased with them, right? So the thing is, such a sacrifice for someone is possible only if you have a deep relationship. That's the idea. That means if you don't have a deep relationship and love for someone, you don't want to sacrifice. Why do you want to sacrifice? Like for example, a mother sacrifices so much for the children and for the family because she deeply loves them. If the love aspect goes away or gets reduced, then the sacrifice aspect also reduces only. So basically it's from Prabhupada's quote where he says the disciple must have genuine love for the Guru. Then only he can be under his control. So he emphasizes on this point. Otherwise, why should one be under the control of another person? So that means this is considered the first principle of education. The relationship between the teacher and the student. It can be at the school level, it can be at the guru-disciple level we talk of in ISKCON. At any level this is very important, that you should have that relationship, you should have that genuine love, for that person. Then only you will want to sacrifice something for that person. So why he talks about this is because, he talks about it in different ways. For grown-up devotees like all of us, this fact still remains. That only if we really love our spiritual master, we will want to do something for our spiritual master. If the love is lost, actually everything is lost. So everything comes from that. So just like he gives the example of a patient and doctor. The patient is ready to listen to the doctor's instructions as long as he has faith that this doctor is really going to cure my disease. The time he starts losing that faith, it immediately starts getting affected. You start feeling that, why should I, do all these things and so on. Like 3 months back, I took a treatment from one Ayurvedic doctor, Jamadagni. So what happened is that, so whenever you go in any social circle, devotees, everybody offers something, you have to say no. Because Patya, this, that. So one devotee actually for a great, he made me sit and told me for a very long time how this, modern Ayurvedic practitioners are bogus, according to him. He's a nice devotee only, but he feels very strongly. So he started telling me in great detail what is Ayurvedic science, how the, many things. I'm not going to go into details of that, and I don't even know whether what he said was correct or wrong. But one thing certainly happened. After talking to him, my faith little bit reduced. I became a slightly more slack in following things. So following things very strictly. So what generally happens is, as long as we have faith in the doctor, full faith we are ready to follow. The day the faith starts losing little bit, so that's why, and faith, love, relationship, these are all connected. So in the children context, what he basically says is, he says this, quoting from general Vedic tradition and everything, he says that every child also should have deep relationship with his parents and teachers. This is very important. Not just very superficial relationship. He's saying if they don't have that, he's saying that modern times, because children don't have deep relationship with either their parents or their teachers, when they grow into adolescence, they tend to, believe more in their friends rather than superiors. Generally, you've seen, right? In teenage, people have more faith in friends only. If typical teenage mindset, 12, 13, 14, and all, they generally have more faith in their friend peer group and not so much in their superiors. Because their relationship was not struck very nicely. And when that happens, they are unable to take very seriously the superior's instructions, and they generally do their musical things only. So this is a very observable phenomenon which we can all see around in the world today. So he says that it is all related to relationship with Guru. So he is saying relationship with Guru is important as a child, as an adult, always. You always need relationship with your superiors in general. A real relationship and faith and love in your superiors. As long as you have that, you will sacrifice and follow them. The day that starts getting loosened up, we stop following. Or we become very reduced to it. Yeah, any quick comment?
Actually, once in a lecture you were telling that there are various stages, like in a child, he takes his name. Then he understands that he is... So in that, since you were telling that at a particular age, they don't want the interference of the parents much. It may not be that they don't have relation, like I'm just clarifying.
No. That was not what that they said. That is said that they are generally, that means their independent personalities.
Independent personality comes.
But even when you are independent, like all of us also, our independent personalities very much come out. But that doesn't mean that we are not supposed to obey our superiors, right?
Okay.
We are also supposed to obey our superiors only, no matter how big you have become. In that context, we are talking. Is that okay? Any other comment on this?
Regarding Prabhupada's follower in the initial time, like some had a genuine love for Prabhupada, and others like some felt that he was a good man, and they kept on following. So, how does that get converted into the deep relation, or after some time it just goes up?
Yeah, so they say that, in the context of Prabhupada, those who had, many of them who were very close to Prabhupada, they left later. That is also there. But then again, many of them came back also, several of them actually. At the time of death and all, they really Prabhupada got them back. We hear that always. So what we understand is that they had relationship, not that they did not. In fact, it was based on relationship with Prabhupada only many people were carrying on despite their own faults. But then you have to see the whole thing. That is, the previous conditioning and everything was very strong on them. So when that association went away of Prabhupada, there was nothing for them to hold on to. The Vani they could not latch on to so strongly. So due to that strong conditioning and everything and weak determination, people fell off. But those who had connection, like Brahmananda Prabhu, if you see, Prabhupada had promised him that you will pass away in Vrindavan. There is one statement of that. It had come actually, I think, Giriraj Maharaj says. So then it so happened that when he passed away, he came to Vrindavan and devotees arranged to take him in an ambulance to Delhi. But he passed away in the ambulance only, just about to leave Vrindavan. That means he passed away within Vrindavan only. So basically many of the people who had that relationship with Prabhupada, even though they may have had some difficulties later, that thing really kept them tuned in, kind of.
some people felt that he was a genuine man, doing good, and they did not understand too much about the position, real position of Prabhupada.
Yeah, so then that is obviously not a very deep relationship, because deep relationship.
Does that get transformed by their service?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, otherwise they're very superficial, right? If they really don't just appreciate Prabhupada as a nice man.
They appreciate it, they kept on doing service. So does
Yeah.
that get transformed?
Yeah, if they do service, it gets transformed. You know, if you do love and service, otherwise it does not. Otherwise it does not. Yeah, so this is the first important principle he talks of in education. In any education, whether you are a child or whether you are an adult, as long as you have a very good relationship with your superiors, you will progress. You know, and this is again very important. So he says that how parents should encourage and ensure that they have a very good relationship with their child, and they should also ensure that the child has very good relationship with their teachers and other things like that. So he talks about that in this context, from children's perspective. But this is a truth that applies to everybody. The second thing, as far as education is concerned, he quotes from this very famous Upanishad verse, Brihadaranya Upanishad. This Upanishad. In this Upanishad, there is this great sage Yajnavalkya who speaks to his wife. You know, so the Upanishad is a conversation between the husband and wife. You know, so they had really good quality conversation. That is why they became part of Upanishad. Many of us are also having conversations with our wives, but perhaps it is not getting translated to Upanishad. So the Yajnavalkya is speaking to his wife in Brihadaranya Upanishad, where one line he says, 4.56 in this Upanishad is, by hearing, contemplating and good judgment, the self can be realized. He's talking about how one can realize spiritual truths. So three things he's talking of, which he elaborates very nicely. First is Shravanam, that is hearing. Second is Mananam, that is contemplation. And third is Nididhyasanam, that is judgment. So Shravanam is something that all of us do. In fact, in ISKCON, the maximum thing that we do is Shravanam actually. We do a lot of Shravanam, really. So he doesn't really speak so much about Shravanam. But one thing that he says that most devotees fail to do in their lives is Mananam. Mananam. Mananam means contemplation of what you have heard. And he elaborates that very nicely actually. Why is contemplation important? And how is contemplation achieved traditionally? You know, he speaks on that also in great detail. So contemplation means what? Basically, it's simple thing. Contemplating means what you have heard to churn it within your mind. That's actually contemplation. So he says the importance of contemplation, you know, in terms of 3 points really, you know, which I have kind of, sorry. Yeah, the first thing he says is the importance of mananam or contemplation is to understand how is what we heard beneficial to us. He says that anything you hear, even in a devotee circle, whether you come to counseling meeting or hearing your spiritual master, whatever you are hearing, or even a child when he hears, a child should be trained to do what he calls as contemplating. So the first aspect of contemplation is to understand how is something beneficial to you. Because everything that you hear in every class is not applicable to you. So he says that there are certain things which are very beneficial to us, certain things perhaps is not applicable to us in our context. I mean, do we all agree with this by and large? When you hear lectures, so many things we hear, right? Which sometimes some things are like, not immediately applicable to us context.
It's about being beneficial to us and applicable to us.
Applicable to us, yeah. Applicable, in this, when you apply it, then it will benefit. No? So they are just kind of directly going to the fruit of it. Yeah. That means whether we can actually put it in our lives, that's what he says. And if we can put it in our lives, then only we are going to get the benefit out of it. Because there are certain things perhaps we may not be able to put it or something like that. In general, in education. He said this is the first thing in it. So this is the importance of contemplation. He said as you contemplate, even if you assume that everything that you heard was beneficial, only when you contemplate, he says that it actually starts sinking in. So he says that, so this is the first thing, B. And the second thing he says is, he says that the quality of realization is proportional to the quality of contemplation. So he says that R is realization. That means even if you heard something, you will actually really understand that truth only to the extent you contemplated it. If you did not contemplate or sit, contemplation means basically to sit with yourself at peace. And think. So he says this requires a lot of goodness generally. And that is why he is saying in modern, even in ISKCON, devotee society or anything, this is generally absent. As in, our lives are also so fast paced. Many times we are just jumping from one program and one event to another. We are hardly having time to really sink the things that we heard. So he is saying the quality of realization is proportional to the quality of contemplation. So this again he quote. And the third thing he says is, the quantum of information you hear is not at all important. He is saying that the Shravanam, he is saying that with less Shravanam also, if there is more Mananam, that actually really benefits the person. Having that I put as D, so I just forgot what was my D here. Sorry. Yeah, deep contemplation gives more realization with less inputs. Yeah. So basically, how it is beneficial, or as Dasar Prabhu pointed out, how we can apply it. R stood for yeah, the quality of realization, and D stands for deep contemplation gives rise to more realization with less inputs. So he says that even if you hear less, but you learn to contemplate more input. Now he says, how was contemplation achieved in Vedic times? And this is something that I like the most actually. He says contemplation or mananam was achieved by menial service. He was saying menial service, he is saying menial service, that is why traditionally in Gurukul system menial service was emphasized. He says because the advantage of doing menial things is that it is very routine. And he is saying when you are doing menial things, your mind is free to think of other subjects. He was saying traditionally, for example, the Guru would engage a disciple in cleaning the floor, mopping. These are all menial services. So he says, in a menial service, what happens is, your mind is not too occupied with that service. Because that is very simply achieved. Like if you have to groom, or you have to wash pots, or you have to cut vegetable, or any such thing, you have to cut firewood and come from the forest, like Krishna and Sudama. You don't have to put your entire consciousness into it. Only your physical body is acting. Your mind is free. So you are saying that this was very important in Vedic times, where your physical body gets to do things where the mind is totally free. And this is possible, he says, only in menial service. So that is why he is saying traditional system, menial service was emphasized on. He is saying that is why in ISKCON also in Brahmacharya Ashram they emphasize on menial service. He is saying the purpose is this, so that you use that time to contemplate. I like this very much because in today's world somehow, especially with our fast-packed life, there are no menial services. That's the real point actually, he quickly said it. Menial services are reducing. As in, you tend to do always things which really, draw your consciousness fully. Like imagine, we are on the internet surfing or checking mails. It's really not menial. It's something which draws all your consciousness. You cannot do anything else parallelly with it. So you see things like sweeping and all are considered extremely important these days for everybody. Right from a child to a grown-up. Because you can contemplate at that time on what you heard. And he's saying unless you do that, BRD will not happen. And he says that unless that is done, it is like the cow which chews first, it has to chew it second time. Only then it will sink in. So he's saying this stage is saying generally, and he says at this stage it requires a lot of sattva gun to do this activity. He's saying in the platform of Rajas, where we are constantly running here and there, running, our mind is totally wound up. We don't have time to peacefully contemplate. And he's saying when this lacks, as far as this sage Yajnavalkya to his wife is concerned, we miss out one very important stage. So I personally thought that at least, though we have all heard about it, but I really felt that this was a very important point that he makes in his thing. Because everything else we understand. Nididhyasanam, third stage means application. Then what you heard, you apply. You heard something, you apply it. You heard, okay, you should chant attentively, apply it now. But he is saying that this stage is very important. Any quick comment on it? Anybody else? Yeah, one second.
Time is not there.
We do it when required.
Even here the time is not there, so Mananam
The second thing.
No, I understand that we are all in certain situations, but at the same time, let us all try and understand one thing, that spiritual life in general is a scientific process, right? We all say, scientific process, there is a way to do it. And if you skip about something, so basically what he says is, if you don't do Mananam, Shravanam translating to application may problem aayega. And the fact is that, I agree with you, I am also the same boat as you certainly, but the fact is that we all have troubles because of that in general. So we have to see how to get some time out for contemplation.
Actually, for us, a better way to put it is that, the Shastra says that we should be proactive in Mananam. But in our case, what happens at times, some circumstances come which force us to do Mananam at times. So we are reacting in Mananam at times, if at all.
Oh, yeah.
We can just.
Oh, that means you are saying that basically after you Shravanam and you apply and nothing works, then you sit and do Mananam while you wait.
Or some circumstances, you are
that's more a firefighting approach.
That's what is the beauty of Grihastashram as well, in the sense that it makes you go through certain circumstances, and if your reading and hearing is proper, then you would actually want to contemplate and come to right conclusions.
I thought the only menial service that most of us do is driving. As in, driving is a very routine activity. Where your mind doesn't have to be, you can think about it. I don't do anything else that we do. But it's
at that point of time because people are cutting lanes and
How does sharing lead to contemplation?
I'll talk about that. I have done
This menial service generally when we do, that is when it is required, then only we do. So that is different than specifically doing it.
No, he is
with
saying that menial service was always considered an important part of lifestyle to help you do mananam. Because menial service is defined. It's defined menial service as any activity where your physical body is engaged but your mind is free. Abhi chalo batao menial kya hai?
That's what like in voice we used to do certain things. So that was a schedule that it was required to be done. Otherwise things.
Yeah. So the beauty of the Vedic lifestyle was it imposed such things.
Okay.
But
it helps.
Yeah. It helps. But today we may have vacuum cleaner and everything. We may have where nobody does anything. But then we'll have to find time for it. That's the basic point. Agreed? Anybody has any objection? Yes, Mataji. I think Mataji have in general a lot of menial things to do, so they shouldn't have any problem with Menial is defined as any activity where your physical self is routinely engaged and your mind is free for contemplation. This is definition of menial activity. It's like washing toilet is menial. Garland banana menial hai. Floor, washing pot. These are all things where your physical body is engaged but your mind is totally free. That is the definition of menial. That's what I told you in my So all this abhi jo bataya ye sab to menial hi hai na baba.
Nahi, asking other example.
Other example. That's why I was thinking driving. Most of us we don't have to think.
Those activities where mind is not free, she is.
No, mind is not free. Come on. If you're sitting in front of a computer, most of us go to office. Yeah, your mind is totally occupied. In fact, physical body is sitting in one place on the chair, but your mind is fully gone. So that is not at all menial from this perspective. You understood? In modern times, physical body is static, just sitting in one place only. Mind is fully sucked in. So that is the opposite of menial. Yeah, nothing is menial. Yeah.
First time I think when it was held in Mughal. So during Prabhupada's disappearance, the opening of Prabhupada's disciples, one disciple he was telling, I don't know his name because it's not a popular one. He was telling that they conduct this reading of Prabhupada's purport once a week, and they just read maybe one purport only. And so much contemplation on that one purport, and he was saying that why devotees feel that we have to read everything.
Yeah.
Complete everything.
Yeah. Perfect. It's exactly the same point. He emphasizes on this point what Mataji pointed out. Let the Shravanam be proportionately lesser, no problem. But he's saying don't skip this step. If you just skip this step and you are running around too much, it doesn't benefit because it doesn't sink in. It says that you hear. So please remember, it doesn't mean that tomorrow everybody bunks the Sunday Bhagavatam saying that we heard everything that we need to contemplate, so better don't go. That's not the point really, but yeah.
Probably this Shrunavatam Saugata Krishna, that it appears to us that hearing is.
Yeah, see, please try to understand. There are different sections of the verses which will focus on one thing. अभी वो श्रवणम पे class देना तो ये सब पे हम बात ही नहीं करेंगे. बराबर है ना? But yeah, so that's the point. That's a prerequisite ना. श्रवणम हुआ है नहीं तो मननम किस पे होगा? तो श्रवणम तो है.
उसमें result is the next steps are given that you get purified just by hearing.
Yeah, but there are
not gradually.
No, but there it is implied that this is there. It is implicit. You can't. So that's what I've told you. You have to see the Vedic scriptures as a whole only always. You cannot just latch on to one thing and say, यहाँ पर ऐसे लिखा है, ऐसा नहीं होता. As far as this sequence of flow is concerned, it's very standard flow. Okay, another thing about, yeah, okay?
No, means what I'm asking is for some people, suppose it is very difficult even to hear. If he is putting his efforts, the Lord is pleased and Lord is going to mercifully purify him. That is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I understand. He is saying for somebody hearing only is very difficult. At least first step to we have to
So
do.
in fact, in that case, the contemplation will be more because even here is so rare. Yeah, that thirst to hear.
Okay, one more thing. Another thing, how Mananam is attained. He says one is by menial service and other is by sharing. This is why sharing was considered extremely important in the Vedic government. Whether it was a Gurukul or whether it's God brothers sitting together, sharing. You know, that means, like, I mean, this is something that actually many of us do. We hear a class and we tell somebody what we heard and what we liked. So that is something that we are all doing. It cannot dim because it's a very brand new LCD project. I don't know why. No, lamp dimming means if I don't give any input, वो बंद हो जाता है. Yeah, so this is something that we are all doing, by the way. So, I mean, I will not tell that we are not doing anything. We all do sharing of what we heard. सब लोग करते हैं. हमें क्लास सुनते किसी को तो बोलते हैं ना हमने क्या सुना. हमने ये सुना, ये बहुत अच्छा था. This we can do like this. ये हम करते हैं. So, it's like sharing was that's very important. Because sharing is connected to Mananam. Mananam is attained by two ways. One is by menial service. I mean, not by menial service automatically. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Right? So you see, this is another important principle in education. So anybody who claims to be a student, whether you are in a Gurukul or whether you are a grown-up fellow hearing your spiritual master, you have to do these three things. You know, and the stage that we generally miss out, which I focused on today, is Manana. Okay? Going next. Then he talks about importance of education. I thought this was also very, very exciting. So he talks of understanding any activity. So he's saying that how does one understand some activity? So what do you mean by understanding any activity? That means he says the purpose is to have impression on the mind. That means to create a samskara in the mind. You know, that is what we mean by understanding any activity. So he says that there are three ways of understanding any activity. I mean, this will give positive and negative example. So please hold on. So the first way to understand any activity is hearing. Hearing. And this is in Sattva-guna, mode of goodness. Hearing is a Sattva-guna activity. Why it is Sattva-guna activity? Because there is least excitement for the senses. You know, you are just sitting, because in hearing only the mind is involved. And the mind is traditionally considered a product of Sattva-guna. So there is least excitement, the senses are not engaged. So hearing is a Sattva-guna activity to Sattva-guna way of understanding any activity. Seeing involves Sattva and Rajas. So example देंगे हम, just hold on 2 minutes till I just complete the flow and then give two examples, positive and negative both. So seeing involves Sattva and Rajas, the impression is greater. It involves Rajas because an attachment is developed, because you see the activity. So you understand by seeing. You know, so the seeing process creates attachment. So that's why it is considered Rajas by and large. Experience is considered the most intense experience of understanding any activity, the most intense phenomenon, and it is considered by and large in Rajas and Sattva. You know, and somebody who is in Tamaguna, he understands by neither of these things. You know, so let's see positive and negative examples. So first, let's take a negative example. So he says that suppose you want to, tell a child or tell anybody that, let us say, drinking is bad. So if you want to tell drinking is bad, the best way to understand drinking is bad by hearing about it. Why drinking alcohol is actually bad. सुन के समझ में आने का. If somebody is in Sattva, he says that by hearing, he can understand that activity. It's not necessary that everybody has to taste everything. Like Prabhupada के साथ हुआ ना, किसी ने पूछा, you are saying drugs are this thing, have you ever tasted it? So of course Prabhupada that time he said that I have not, but my disciples have. They will come and tell you. And then Hayagriva comes and says it's all bakwas. LSD, they are. So Prabhupada said that LSD will not take you to higher states of consciousness. So when Hippie thought he's very smart, he asked Prabhupada this question. The basic point is, by hearing itself, one should be able to understand negative activities, negative things. See, for positive things, it's the other way. The experience is better. Like going through, gives an example. He says that why should devotees, for example, work to ensure that the Yamuna river is restored in Vrindavan? Just like, for example, currently Yamuna is not there only in Vrindavan. Yamuna is terminated long back, and then there is a 100 kilometer there is sewage, and rainwater mixes comes in the Yamuna pass. In 1972, 1980, 90 के बाद वो यमुना बंद ही हो गया. वो हरियाणा में बंद हो जाती है यमुना. So he was saying that why is it important that devotees should struggle to get the Yamuna back? He was saying because simply by hearing, now that's a positive activity. If you want to understand and really relish the beauty of the Yamuna, we are all singing Ami Yamuna Puline Kadamba Kanane, we're singing all the songs. If you want to really relish the beauty of Yamuna, hearing is there is seeing and there is experience in that environment. So if something is positive, then the experience is considered very good. Because it will solidify that experience. You actually took bath in the river Yamuna with lotus flowers in it. It will give you an impression, very strong. But for negative, it is opposite. So basically, I have written this from the negative perspective because he emphasizes more on that. So he says that anything negative in life, we should train our children and ourselves to hear and understand that something is wrong. Because especially here, he focuses a little on children, where he says that as they grow into juvenile age, they will want to start experiencing things. So he is saying that so then he says that, so that is why he says that 3 years before a child attains puberty, from that time onwards, a relationship should be cultivated properly with the parents and the teachers. He is saying if that happens from the age of 8 for a girl and from the age of 10 for a boy, he says that then by the time they hit puberty, they have a relationship. And when they have a relationship, they will believe you when you say that, hear and understand that something is wrong. Because you have got them to a particular level. He is saying if they don't have a relationship, they will always want to experience it. And he is saying this is a history of our general ISKCON movement where people wanted to experience. Because they didn't have that faith and that kind of relationship with their teacher and parent. So he is saying that is why, so he connects everything to that relationship. The first thing that he said. That relationship with superior is fundamental if you want education and advancement in life. If you don't have relationship, things just start crumbling. So relationship is fundamental, he says. And he says ashram, everything is based on relationship. Brahmacharya ashram, Grahastha ashram, relationship is spoiled, things are spoiled. So relationship is the root of his entire thesis that he makes. So as far as negative things are concerned, he says that if you hear and understand, it's fantastic. So then he says that the mind has 3 functions. If you see the right hand side, I put it up. There is thinking, there is feeling, and there is belief. So he says the thinking faculty of our consciousness corresponds to hearing. Because he says you hear and think, that is connected. Seeing corresponds to feeling. He says when you see, you actually feel somebody else doing it. So he is saying that, drinking. So if somebody is not ready to understand by hearing, you have to show them drunkards. You have to show what happens when a person drinks. See, isko aisa hua, gutter mein pad gaya. You have to show all that. So there is more feeling involved in it. It is more, the impression is greater. It is, Rajoguna has been added. But the experience is the most intense. Because attachment is severe. One has to drink and understand that there is nonsense. So that is belief. And generally says that once the mind can be technically controlled, he says only at the thinking stage. Once you go past feeling, the mind can never be controlled. Then through intelligence you have to pull the mind back and understand that it is wrong. As far as the mind is concerned, he said it will never understand it is wrong. This is a very nice point he says. That once any activity, you go past the thinking process, then the mind will not listen to you. Then only through intelligence you have to pull it back, saying that galat hai. So buddhi se usko khechna padta hai. So he says that the least is, so for negative things he says that at hearing we should stop. For positive things and neutral things. Neutral things means like for example, as I think you have spoken about it, right? Like I mean, once I think I have given the example also, like if you have to teach physics to your child or something like that, the best way to learn it is actually to experience, to do it. Because if you hear, the impression is not very strong. Like most of us, right? Generally the traditional mode of schooling has been where you simply keep hearing and writing. Technical things. But there you have to actually do it. And that intense experience becomes a part of your personality. So for positive and neutral things, you need to go till here. But for negative things, as far as possible, one should be happy with the hearing process. So you see, that will be possible to the extent one is in Sattva Guna, one can stop at the thinking process. So the Shastra generally says that better not to go to seeing and experiencing in the negative domain. The more a person does it, the more it is difficult to pull back. And that is a fact actually. It becomes really difficult to pull back. So 1 second, yeah. So I'll just complete this whole thing. Intensity of experience correlates with the intensity of attachment. Fantastic statement. He says that whatever experience you correlates with the attachment. So he's saying that once you enter this experience domain, your attachment is maximum because you've willed and you have done something. So he's saying that anything that we have done in life, so he's saying if any devotee in his past he has broken correlative principle in some way, he has done it, then he's saying that will always act on his life. It will always keep hitting him sometime. Meaning a gear. So he says that is terrible. So he gives example of fire, smoking and all. So he's saying the natural state of the mind is sattva guna, so hearing is best for it. But he's saying to do that, one should have that kind of samskaras, which we will come to the next point. So then there is the next or logical point, how to get the right samskaras, etc. Any quick comment on this hearing thing experience?
Neglecting the mind comes,
Neglecting the mind comes when the mind wants to feel and will. You heard something, but the mind says, "No, go be experience karne ka hai." So then one is supposed to neglect. Yeah. Because once you go past this stage, it becomes extremely difficult to catch it back. It is gone. It's gone already.
Senses are coming.
Yeah, senses are coming. And the mind has got attached to it. So it will not want to pull out of it.
No, what I'm asking is thinking stage, if suppose you keep thinking about it, you will end up in the next
No. Thinking is not like that. Thinking is the contemplation related to the hearing process. You hear and you think of what you heard. Not think of how I should breathe. Not that
That's
kind
what,
of
but
thinking.
it may lead to force me that I want to see somebody
Like
like
don't
that.
think of a red monkey.
No. It is not.
Neglecting, like Prabhupada
Not
said the best.
overthinking, na Prabhuji.
They have used these terms, but they are not to be confused in some other
They are
context.
not coming in some other context. Here the thinking is very clear. The thinking is the context. Thinking is connected to the hearing process. Because when you hear, you think. When you hear what you have heard. In that context. It's more in the Mananam context that the thinking is used. Not in the context of contemplating the object. Jaye to vishayan pumsa. Wo thinking nahi bol rahe. That is feeling actually. You are actually feeling an attachment to it. You want to do something like that. Right? Make sense?
When it is said natural state of intelligence is to deal with
Passion.
activity, it means basically the intelligence always likes to be engaged.
Yeah, intelligence is the buddhi part of the subtle body is in passion only because it was always contemplating and it wants to deal with activity, decide what to do, what not to do. That's the passion by then. Any other comment? Yeah.
When you are positive with the modes are same, you give the example of positive. The modes are same for the same.
No. Positive is not like that. So positive, for example, like I gave the example of river Yamuna or Vrindavan. Like for example, Vrindavan. We can all hear about the glories of Vrindavan. That's fine. You can actually feel it, by reading Maharaj's Journey Home book and how he experienced Vrindavan. Or you could actually go to Vrindavan Dham and experience. So these modes are written mainly for the negative purpose. Because in that context, there it doesn't act that way. Or for example, like I told you, suppose you want to teach some neutral subject, like there also experience is very important. So this mainly the modes are written mainly for the negative context, negative actions. Right? Makes sense? Yeah.
Actually, we don't want to see negative things, but we are forced to see. Like we should not.
That is different. That is different. Here the seeing is not in that context. Here the seeing is to understand your seeing. That means, see something is, I'll give you a simple example. I'll give you a very direct example. Suppose let us say, we all have to deal with these challenges. So I'm just putting forward this topic. Because I was speaking to one devotee who gave me this. There are adult movies, right? Now our children, for example, as they grow up, at one point of time they'll start understanding. Yeah, I said it is okay. Correct? They'll first hear about it. क्या होता है? यही क्यों डाला इसमें? तो बताना पड़ेगा बाबा ये. But then somebody may not be satisfied with that. They may say that I want to see it and understand it, or I want to experience it. So the seeing is not that we are traveling on a bike and we are forced to see. That's not the seeing. This seeing is dhyato. That means you want to see it from the purpose of feeling the emotion. You want to really, see it in that sense. That is the seeing. It's not just the casual seeing. The seeing is not the eye function of seeing. अभी मैंने ये देखा, ये इधर ये कर रहा है, वो कर रहा है. वो seeing नहीं. Oh, that's a very. As you walk around the world, unavoidable that so many thoughts. This is going on. You have to see it. That got it.
The seeing is when you see an activity which you are not supposed to do, but someone else is doing it.
Yeah, to understand it. That means you are not convinced about some activity, so you want to see and understand. That is basically, see means here it is feel. Feel is the emotion.
You look at someone and then you put yourself in that situation.
You want to really identify what goes in.
Then you learn.
Then you
learn. I mean, that's the context.
That's the context here.
Very specific. That's what he's trying to say.
Any other comment? Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. So I think we come to the last point in the domain of education. He says that a teacher's duty is to teach. This is very nice. I like this also very much. He says that importance of any Krishna conscious education ultimately is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So he says that these are two different things. He says generally, we have heard of them being the same. So he says that always remember Krishna is an instruction, never forget Krishna is a prohibition. So he gives many examples. Chanting 16 rounds is to always remember Krishna. To follow the, I'll give you this PPT. I'll mail it to everyone. You don't have to take trouble to take photo of it.
Notes.
Achha, you are typing. Okay. I thought you were writing it down or taking a photograph. Chanting 16 rounds is done to always remember Krishna. Following 4 regulative principles is done to never forget. He says, he gives 2-3 nice examples. He says, suppose if you cook what you like to eat and you offer it to Krishna, that is in the domain of never forgetting him. That means you offer to Krishna what you like to eat. You like to eat something, but then you know that you Krishna को तो भूल नहीं सकते बाबा. मेरे को ये अच्छा लगता है, मेरे को पिज़्ज़ा अच्छा लगता है. लेकिन कृष्णा को तो ऑफर करना ही पड़ेगा पिज़्ज़ा. So you offer to Krishna what you like to eat. So in that process you did not forget him. But no, I just completed.
Never forgetting means
that
not
is sakama.
remembering.
That is sakama. This is nishkama. Always remembering Krishna is nishkama. So for example, he says cooking what Krishna likes to eat. So let us say, the Shastras explain, what Krishna likes to eat in general. Like you see that song is there na, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, what Krishna eats. अभी हमको उस आइटम में कुछ अच्छा लगेगा, हमको पास्ता ही अच्छा लगता है, वो पास्ता है ही नहीं उसमें. But still we cook it because Krishna likes it. But if we say that no, because I like pasta, I will make pasta only and offer to Krishna. So that is in the platform of that you are not forgetting him at least.
It is different than remembering.
So he distinguishes the two and he says that any teacher must ensure that a student has understood both the principles properly.
It is more like Yat Karoshi is a
Yeah.
This is like most
Yeah.
positive.
He says that, we'll give another example. He says, suppose you build a house for yourself. You plan a lot, कैसा कर रहेगा, मेरा रूम ऐसा रहेगा, ये ऐसा रहेगा, वो ऐसा रहेगा. Finally you say, ये भगवान का altar ये जगह पे रहेगा. Finally you said that Krishna के लिए भी एक जगह चाहिए करना. You didn't forget it. Good, he says, you didn't forget it. But he said that, if you are mainly focused on how the house for Krishna has to be, and at the end you think, oh, I have to also stay there, so some corner I need to put my bed over there. If that is the consciousness of action, then that is your always remembering. You did not. He distinguishes the two. So he's saying a teacher should ensure his student has understood both. So he's saying that by always remembering Krishna, you go to Golok Vrindavan. Not as like the education from state, but the original Golok Vrindavan. So that is the Bhagavan aspect. By not forgetting him, you get moksha. Because you will not do any sinful activity. So you ultimately reach the Brahman platform. So he is saying that never forgetting Krishna will surely at least stand you to Brahman. But if you always remember him, you will reach the spiritual world. So he says in this way, both these principles are important. But you should know that there is a difference between the two, and the teacher has to understand that every student has understood both these things. So in this way, he concludes this section on education. Any quick comment on this? Always remember and turning.
How this result that he will go to Brahman or Paramatma?
Because he didn't do anything wrong in his life. See, if you don't do any sinful activity or anything wrong, you get liberated.
No, but he was having Krishna also in his life.
Yeah, so that is the Paramatma is also written, some intermediate stage of existence is also there. Means it's like, it's not a very, I will not go more into it. This is, I think, this is the most least important slide.
Most of this is all mixed with me.
But just to understand, there is a difference between the two.
अभी तो इधर लगा बात.
Mananam actually, we have to teach our kids also from early age, like how to do Mananam and all. Mananam part. So we have to teach the kids also from a very early age because they normally don't do so much of Mananam.
Yeah, so he says in that good point. So that's why this principle is there, that in any principle of education, one day, like anything that you teach must be done over the same routine. The same thing should be done again and again. Like the example is given of classical music. Have you ever heard of this standard, concert? There, the same raga they sing again and again. They repeat it. And then slight change they make to the raga and that they sing 5 times. You see that? I'm saying in any education, it is important to repeat and revise concepts. So that mananam is there. The discussion is happening. So for example, they say that it should never happen that you taught something to a child, made him write everything in the same day and then went ahead to the next chapter tomorrow. Whether material or spiritual, that should not happen. You should always start by connecting to the past. What did we do earlier? You have to do that, he says. Any teacher has to do it.
But it is sort of practice, yeah. But actually,
No, that will emphasize that thinking process in the child to ensure that, always you're connecting back to the past.
And the whole day, whatever you are doing, you can relate to whatever you learn.
Yeah.
It would improve the attendance.
It's ultimately a teacher's trick, but that ability has to be there in any teacher or a parent or anyone. To be able to constantly connect to what you have already done before you introduce any new topic, so that the connectivity is there, the mananam is happening. Because then immediately the child has to contemplate it. Arey, uska connection kya hai iske? That means topics as far as possible should not be discrete and broken up. So, education is considered a one. Everything is just one bulk of knowledge. Right? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so let's just briefly revise the first point, importance of education. Importance of education, 4 principles we learned. Principle number 1 was what?
Relationship.
Relationship. Very good. Relationship. Relationship is important so that we are trying to do mananam, by the way. Relationship is important so that
One can accept the control.
We can advance.
sacrifice and follow. Correct. Only when you have a relationship you will follow a superior. If you don't have a relationship you will not follow. This thing is very important for everyone to have a relationship with a superior. And it is important for everyone to have a relationship with their subordinates. Otherwise the subordinates will not listen to them. Fundamental principle of education. What was the second principle of education? Yajnavalkya talking to his wife. Yeah, hearing, seeing, and the main thing was mananam, which involved 3 things. The importance of was what? How is it applicable, or how does it really benefit me? How it is applicable to me? And the quality of realization is proportional to it. And the deeper it is, the more you understand with less hearing, like Mataji pointed out that past time. And it is attained by menial service. Menial service is defined as any activity where
Physical body.
physical is involved, but mind is free. Complicated activity, which is the opposite of menial activities, where the mind is totally involved, but the body is free.
I wonder why it is not attained by sitting idle. Body is not involved, also mind is also totally free.
It is dangerous. Dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
You go to sleep, man. Simply like that, you go to sleep. Body is busy means, that lethargy is prevented. Sharing. Good point. Acharya raised this very interesting point. Okay, then the third point was understanding an activity is possible by
Hearing and seeing, experience.
hearing, seeing and experiencing. So in the negative domain, it is best to stop at hearing. Hearing corresponds to the thinking process. Seeing corresponds to the feeling process and experiencing corresponds to the willing process. Once you go to the willing, you're finished. You can't stop the activity. Like that. The impression is great. And the last point was, in the domain of education, what is the ultimate purpose of education? Satatam.
सदम स्मर्तव्यो विष्णु स्मर्तव्यो न जातुचित.
Sarva vidhi ishidasho edeyo eva kinkara. So we saw that. Right? Good. Now we are going to the second point. And the second point relates again to the principle of Vatsasura. So again, I have made just 4 sub-points in every point. Yes, Mataji. Let's go back to the first one. Since you have questions for the first one.
Moses taught and relationship is a thing which is not one-sided. Like chanting is more important.
Yeah.
Is one's responsibility. But relationship is something more important, and this is a thing which can't be one-sided.
Never. Relationship can never be one-sided. The guru and the disciple, the subordinate and the inferior, the parent and the child So the thing here, how it is being said is in principle of education, this lesson is for the superior. That you develop a good relationship with your subordinate, so that your subordinate will benefit from it. And from the subordinate, it is, if you really want to obey your superior, you should have a relationship with him. Otherwise, you will not be able to listen to him. So relationship is certainly never one-sided. The definition of relation means there is A and B, both have come. Without which there is no relationship. Yeah, it's obviously a two-sided. No question about it. Absolutely no question. Right?
So these two are only if both parties.
Yes. So Guru and yes. The subordinate and the inferior both have to be tuned in.
One person and don't apply it.
I mean, it will work as in it will work. No, in a concrete way. I mean, it cannot. I mean, how can I say it will? It violates certain principles of things.
One-sided cannot be called as
One-sided thing is not relationship only. That is just a workaround or a unlimited sacrifice from Allah. But that is not relationship. Relationship means दोनों tuned in. Good relationship, husband and wife, both are tuned to each other. Not that wife is saying, I'm always having husband is looking somewhere.
We can say that if he continues to sacrifice, relationship will be developed eventually. Like that.
It need not be. The other fellow also should be ready to put time. Yeah, he's not tuned in only. That's okay. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead. Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward question. Okay, let's start with the Vatsasura effect. So from Saraswati Thakur's harmonious article, he makes these 5 interesting points, which I will first define, and then we will go into something. Okay. The first thing he says is the Puritan. I don't know how to actually pronounce it. I think it's Puritan. You have the book? Oh wow, good. Puritan movement in the West. So he says that the Puritan movement in the West is the movement where generally, like he says that the Western world previously, not now. Now they don't believe in this. They would always encourage, or they would always very strongly tell young people that they should control themselves and they should not enjoy and all that. But they would not actually give real positive alternatives. Are you understanding? That means artificially trying to suppress somebody and keep him disciplined is called as the Puritan movement in the West, which he talks about as completely useless. So I'll tell you, okay, so this whole thing is connected to Vatsasura. Vatsasura basically, we all know that even Krishna Leela, all the demons represent one anartha. So Vatsasura represents juvenile criminal tendencies. That means criminal tendencies that start coming in a child when he is young. When he is 10, 11, 12, it starts coming up. So why it is Vatsasura? Because just like that Vatsa demon, that demon who came in Krishna Leela, he came as a calf and he mixed with the other calves, and he was like, the boys also could not understand that this is a demon here. So that means evil habits come and mix with apparently good habits, and the child doesn't know which is good and which is evil, and he plays around with the good and evil both. That is the connection. Understood? So in Krishna's pastime, the Vatsasura demon mixes with the nice calves. So there are good calves and there is this evil also. And the Krishna's Gopa friends are unable to distinguish, and they are playing with both. But Krishna understands that this calf is evil and he is going to destroy my boys. So Krishna proactively takes a step that he lifts the calf and he whirls him around and he just finishes him. So he kills the calf basically. I mean, the idea is that children are generally innocent and they pick up sometimes bad habits unconsciously. So it is the duty of the superiors to ensure that they don't pick up these ones. You understand? So many bad habits they can potentially pick up. Like just like I and Rashid were discussing recently that sometimes we see, in a temple or congregation also, sometimes it's unavoidable fact of life, but it is noticed. Boys have one set of anarthas which they like, which they somehow enter into, and girls have another. Starting to talk about girls. Girls generally, like Raishan very nicely puts it, I never forget this. He says that for boys, Maya is in the eyes, and for girls, Maya is in the ears. Girls fall in Maya by hearing. Soon ke Maya mein pad jate. So the philosophy is that if any boy keeps telling a girl, I love you, I love you, I love you, they start believing that this girl loves you. And they can get cheated. Hey, today only I saw on some news channel news that there is this Hyderabad Muslim boy, 21-year-old. Through Facebook, he tracked 200 girls. 200 girls in Hyderabad fell for him in various ways, and he was blackmailing everybody. And all these girls were doing whatever this fellow was saying. One girl gave 86,000, many girls sent all their photo in without any clothes to him. Many things they were doing. One girl had the guts to tell her mother, मेरे को एक लड़का blackmail कर रहा है. The mother said no problem, गुंडू told me, police लेके गया उसको पकड़ा. बाकी 109 चुप बैठे. So the point is generally women fall for this. And girls do fall for Maya is hearing. Sun ke they get attracted. Yeah. So basically that is there. And second thing for girls, the issue is dressing and other things. And generally when they are just become a young adult, they like to dress in so many ways. Of course, dressing, as long as the dress is very decent and you're properly covered, that is fine. But certainly parents should take steps when if the girl wants to wear sleeveless and kind of have a large back and show that off. It's not considered very good for a young girl to walk like that. And many times we see that some people are discussing this, that sometimes we see our devotees girls also at the age of 16, 17, they walk like that and apparently the parents are not saying anything. So we're wondering why can't the parents see what we have seen? They should be able to tell or they should be able to do something about it. So that's generally the weakness of women in general. For boys, of course, it is very different. For boys, it's all about the eyes and the passion that comes about, things related to that. So he says, Bhakti says that this is the Vatsa Suridimam. It starts coming in the juvenile time. And connecting everything back to relationship. If you have relationship, the child and the superior can talk about it. If you don't have relationship, the child will never talk to you about it and you can also never talk to the child about it. Your parent, teacher, whatever you are. So he says that the movement in the West failed. That's why today the West has taken a completely different approach. Where nothing is bad, everything is fine. You can do what you want. He was saying, 100 years back West was like this, according to Saraswati Baba. They would force things down without any higher understanding. But he is saying the Indian system is not that. Indian system is trying to teach a person why something is through discussion and understanding. Not to force anything, but through discussion a person should understand. Through the process of what we said earlier, Shravanam, Mananam and hearing, seeing, experiencing everything. So Saraswati Thakur also says that trying to keep innocency by maintaining pranks and purity simultaneously is tough. He says that as sometimes small children, people like children doing pranks. But as they grow up, as they go beyond 10, he says that the pranks should now start reducing and they should start becoming grave. Sometimes he says the parents are attracted to the pranks and the nutcut characters of the child. But he is saying that if you maintain the pranks, he is saying in juvenile age, the pranks go to the other extreme only. So he is saying that at some point of time, gravity has to be introduced and purity must be stressed because both cannot exist simultaneously. He was saying as long as you are a baby, pranks are okay, like Krishna and Nutkat Leela. But then as you grow up, the pranks happen because the pranks will take different shapes. He says. The third point he says in his essay is that innocence is desired for sense enjoyment but should be used for Krishna. It's a very interesting point, it's a very deep point. What Saraswati Thakur is saying is, we all look for innocence in someone just to enjoy that person. Like when I read this, I was just like if you see Bollywood and all, movies we have all seen in the past, we know that they many times they show the actress and everybody is very innocent lady, and then how the hero falls for her. So generally, innocence is desired for sense enjoyment. You understood? So he makes this point. In this world, people look for innocence so that you can enjoy that person. What do you think? Yeah, innocence is the other person. But actually, innocence is for Krishna. Then he says that, this is another important point, a solution for it. See, working hard from the beginning is very important. Working hard means physical work is important for any child. Otherwise, it's very difficult later. And also, when there is working hard, when the senses are employed properly, then the mind is said to be controlled. So that is why the Gurukul system always emphasized on doing some work with hands and legs. So that is considered very important. and minimum dealing with dead matter. I mean, that is, of course, we all keep talking about it, but all the technology which is there. It's a great challenge for all of us as we go ahead. With our children also, you know, we have WhatsApp, this, that, you know, so many things. That's all considered extremely dead matter, which is very impersonal in nature. You know, which completely distracts the mind, and which is the opposite of menial services, which involves your mind and doesn't give activity to the body. It is complete opposite to the Vedic model of engage the body and stay the mind free. Totally opposite that. So this is one area where we all have to see. Saraswati Raghu's article concludes by saying that a sickly body is not as harmful as unlimited sense gratification. So basically, he says that, you know, as a child, when you get exposed to it, then you're finished. So the Vatsasur demon, in short, basically means all kinds of enjoyment tendencies that start coming up in the juvenile age, and if that is not dealt with properly, the person has to struggle. Even if they become a devotee or whatever, it is struggle till death. You know, so it has to be dealt with nicely. You know, so that's the point really. And of course, these points have been mind is the antenna principle, which you all know. The mind gets attached with, like Maharaj's lecture is about famous. Tuning the mind.
Tuning to Krishna's channel.
Tuning to Krishna's channel, yeah. The mind gets attached and antenna. Yeah, so then he says this point. He again comes back to relationships and says that 6 exchanges which you say na, dadati, pratigranati, gukshamakyati, prichati, bhumte, bhojete, cheva. He says these 6 are very important between parents, children and teachers and students. He says it's very important. He is saying the whole Gurukul model, in general, any teaching model was based on this. You know, the 6 exchanges which are there, giving gifts, accepting gifts. And he says giving gifts, the principle he says is, how much time you invest in making that gift, so much that gift will have a potency to make relationship. He defines it in that way. So he says, for example, buying a gift from the shop and giving the most simplest thing, but he's saying that the relationship made as a result of that is the weakest. Because the time invested was less, so there are no real feelings and context. But he's saying when you make something and give someone, yeah. I think yeah, you go over. So, you know, that means the 6 exchanges, the quality is very important. Giving gifts, hearing, discussing in confidence, hearing in confidence, and sitting together and, you know, honoring prasadam, whether it's God brothers or whatever. It is a very important principle. You understand the point, right? I mean, just like sometimes, you know, we had this discussion among our counselors also. Like, for example, this counseling meeting, instead of keeping it on Saturday evening, you know, why not keep it on some Sunday afternoon and, you know, not have prasad only? It seems very nice, but then the pitfall of that is that the relationship doesn't get built. Because the whole funda is, it's not about just getting the work done. You know, meeting करना था भाई सब लोग आ गए, चलो खत्म करो, सबको एक spoon पोहा दे दो, भेज दो. It's not like that. The relationship gets done only when 6 exchanges are there. So that's a fact. So these 6 exchanges are important at all levels of relationship, including parent, children and teacher student. Which he says helps in dealing with Vatsasur tendencies. The connection is that. Because he says if parents and teachers have these 6 exchanges with the students and the children, then what happens is, when the children go through Vatsasur tendencies, they will be ready to reveal it to their parents and they will be able to address it. Otherwise they will not. So that's the whole point. Right? Yeah. Any quick question or comment on this point?
Working hard from beginning means
working hard
where
physical hard.
Physical hard.
For boys and girls.
That is basically menial service.
Yeah, girls means cooking, cleaning, doing something with the hands and legs. Hands and legs movement. From the age of 7, your hands and legs are supposed to move. Not simply sitting and typing or writing.
Dead matter is there also, but here mind is engaged in that.
No, minimum engagement dead matter. वो तो सब कुछ dead matter है दुनिया में. वो dead matter means no, it's not like that. Sorry. What we are talking is minimum dealing with dead matter means anything you are dealing with where there is no relationship is called dead matter. That means the best example is you know, you are typing a gadget. So it's fully dead. There is no person. If you are talking to a person and playing with a person, that's a different thing. There is a living person only. Okay, you know, the body is dead. No point about it.
He gives example of a movie also, like we are seeing and one way we are basically associating with.
Yeah, that comes next. So principle of Vatsasur is clear, right?
Because I see in India, actually the families are traditionally so rigid that they don't sit and have discussions. You said that
No. He says that the Guru would have done that. Guru does it generally. He says that the guru and disciple relationship was always like that. The guru had a much more stronger relationship in such things than the parent. Parent would just say follow these things, but the guru would give reasons why. No, he says that with the guru it was not like that. That was, see, we also have a very perverted, very fallen understanding of the modern India also, which we have. That is also not a perfect India. You understand what I am saying? The example that we have seen in our father's generation and all that, that was not an ideal example only. In many ways it was not ideal. They were hybrid. They were like, please understand the original Gurukul system broke down in 1792. So हमने वो देखा ही नहीं. हमको मालूम ही नहीं हो गया.
They said that we never asked questions, how can you question?
No, not like that. Come on, Tatvidhi Pranipad है ना, बड़ी प्रश्न है जैसे कृष्ण 5000 साल पहले बोल रहे हैं.
In the beginning only, he writes. The first he says to start off, the first guru is the mother, the second is the father, and the third, where such situations come up, the guru that time is the guru.
Guru, the teacher. Yeah.
So you are there that time you are interacting more with the guru.
The guru. Unavoidable. That is not a correct understanding of India actually. See, the whole thing in India is based on question and answer. Question and answer. It is never based on blindly follow.
We after coming to this call, we saw that the people are asking questions of spiritual.
No, that is the right mode and that is not ISKCON introduced. तो पहले से वैसे ही है. अपना वो परंपरा थोड़ा बीच में टूट गया इंडिया में. Upanishad. Same thing. Nachiket is asking questions, right? Nachiket. Yes. Any quick question on this Vatsasura?
Juvenile, when you say what age do you juvenile?
For girls it's from 11, for boys it's from 13. 11 to 16, 13 to 18. The time they become an adult.
Not so directly related, but you were saying about giving gifts and having those 6 exchanges with Guru, and you were saying that if we invest more time in doing some...
The relationship is stronger.
I was just thinking that we see this in nature also. There are some vegetables that take very long to grow, and it is said that those vegetables last very long outside, and they give the maximum strength to the body.
Like?
Koda.
There are many things. There are others that grow very fast. But they don't last after plucking for
Same thing. Yeah, so the principle, yeah, it's an eternal principle basically. That's what you say. Yeah, correct. Perfect. Good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Move ahead. Yeah. Association.
The last thing in the last previous slide.
Oh, sorry. Principle of Amanina. He says that another important aspect in curbing Vatsasura tendency is to keep the child, to train the child to be satisfied with less. That means less for me, the better. That would curb juvenile tendencies later. He's saying the child should be satisfied in as minimum as possible in general. That principle, Amanina. Yeah, everything was giving. Yeah, correct. He's making an interesting point. Actually, this is another point. Actually, we were discussing with someone about who. That in ISKCON we should also have proper how birthday celebration. Now our main thing is Hare Krishna to happy birthday को हमने वो tune convert कर दिया उतना ही किया. We really don't know how to celebrate actually. Tradition हमको पता है कि केक आना चाहिए और केक को कट होना चाहिए सब पूरा western है. We really don't know. We have to do some research. किसी को तो बोला है मेरे. I think in Bhakti Rasa
he gave a long lecture how to celebrate a birthday, and he said the minimum is at least stop blowing the candles. That's the minimum.
अरे वो तो नहीं कर रहे हैं.
He explains fully what exactly birthday means.
क्या है बताओ ना फिर. तुम इम्प्लीमेंट करो अगला जगन्नाथ श्रीनाथ बर्थडे को करके दिखाओ. गिफ्ट दो सोना का.
रिलेशनशिप में वो सुनता ही नहीं है. हमारा रिलेशनशिप में ये नहीं
कोई सुनता नहीं. बर्थडे प्रॉब्लम है.
They have the natural desire, they go for the parties, so they have natural desire.
Bhabiji, we have only programmed to take that. ये दुनिया में आए क्या जानती है क्या बर्थडे मतलब कटिंग की. हमने सिखाया है बैठ के कट करके सिखाया हमने.
But they go for other parties, so that feeling is there. I also.
We can show it our. We have a huge devotee population here, and
at least हम लोग return gift देते थे कम से कम कुछ तो चलेगा.
Let's go manual में एक chapter birthday celebration.
we have to do it. Seriously, you have to do it. I think it's a very important thing. Seriously,
transcribe that. It's not 4 or 5. It should not be. Just go to temple and do. I mean.
Yeah, correct.
In fact, after Saturday, they start saying and demanding that we.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
We should ban birthday celebration.
The second point here is
Nothing is forced.
second thing is association. So he says that Vatsasura. The Vatsasura effect mainly comes due to bad association. So it's a very interesting letter of Prabhupada which we all know, but we are quoting it here. Prabhupada is writing to Arundhati Mataji. The background is that, so you know the background of the story, then only you'll understand this letter. This Arundhati Mataji has a son who is some 2 or 2.5 years old, and because she is doing service, she had given the child to another devotee Mataji to take care. Are you understanding? As a crush mein डालते बोलते हैं crush में. Arundhati Mataji, she had a child, a boy, 3-year-old or something. She had given that boy to another lady to take care because she had service. You understand? Prabhupada ka letter है वो context में. पढ़ो. I am surprised that you want to give up your child to some other person, even though they are devotees. Prabhupada is saying, I am surprised you did this. 3 साल का बच्चा था ना, उसको किसी और को दे दिया था because she was a full-time lady. So Prabhupada was expressing surprise. How did you do this? ऐसे कैसे किया तुमने? How did you do this? For you, child version is more important, DD version. यहाँ पे आता है. If you cannot spend time with it, stop your Pujari service. Then Prabhupada concludes the letter by saying that after your child is 5 years, send him to our such and such school in such and such place, and then we will take care of it. वो letter का continuation. You understood, ना? So the whole point is that association is very important, and the parents also, their association, that positive association is extremely important, and that cannot be substituted. That's the point we're making it. Yeah.
Even though they are devotees.
Even though they are devotees, that's the point really. You know, because she had given to another devotee only. That is the background of this letter. Prabhupada का letter है, ऐसा नहीं कर सकते. Just so that we want to service. नहीं कर सकते. Yeah. So basically the thing is association का next thing is attraction. So this is a very nice point. He says that. I mean, this is something very nice. He says passion is extremely beautiful. However, the price is high. He says in nature there are so many examples of animals, insects and plants which are well decorated to attract prey. You know, so he's saying that passion in general is existing in the world to attract and kill. He says that is a function of passion. He's saying that there are examples like this. Then he gives a very nice example from the American and European countries. He says that in cold countries, spring and summer is very short because it's ice throughout the year. So plants grow, flower and seed very fast. Animals have to eat and mate very quickly too. It says therefore the entire environment in the western world, the spring season is very beautiful, temporarily. But very quickly everything becomes tamagun again because it just becomes ice. So he's saying the principle of attraction. So he's saying that this attraction which is there is a very strong thing which is there right from the juvenile times where a person wants to get attracted. And that is all part of the Vatsasura effect. You know, which one has to learn better to. So that parts will come later, why it should be careful of. Okay, anyway, in attraction, one point he makes which I thought was very good. Principle of attraction is that we are attracted to qualities in others which are in ourselves. He elaborates this. He says that what is in us in seed form, we catch that quality only in another person. This is the nature of how we are attracted to people. So that's why he says the same person, he has different kinds of relationships with different people because everybody is looking and drawing different sets of qualities from this person.
Likes attract.
Yeah, then I don't know the point. See, a person is jealous, is there. He has so many qualities. So each of us, what quality we may have in a small form which we have, we will be attracted to that aspect of his personality. Other aspect of that person's personality we don't look on. You understand?
Rather the other way around. He's jealous of that quality. He's talking about the ideal platform.
No, he's not talking about ideal platform. I'll explain this again in the example. There are some really interesting characters who will be right in front of you. How to get the Anyway, it's okay. The principle that he's talking is that, I tell you how this comes. This comes from this basic premise that we look for fault only when we have that fault in ourselves. You understood, now? So the point is, every individual has multiple qualities. Multiple qualities any individual has. And we also have multiple qualities in us. So you see the attraction principle is such that if I have some quality and that is there in that person, I see that prominently in him.
I think why
Because that is a part of my personality. If something else is there in him, which I cannot really relate to, I cannot only focus on that. See, I'll tell you how this comes. even as devotees also, we have relationship with so many devotees, right? Our relationship with different devotees are different, if you see. We talk different things to different devotees. Like when I meet them in college, I talk something. Yeah, I meet them, I talk something else. You know, different devotees, we talk different things. Because we all have certain qualities and we actually tune with other person in terms of certain qualities they have. You understand? So why he says this is because he says this is the reason why it was emphasized two things, that don't look so much for the fault in others, because that fault is actually there in yourself. That's why you are seeing this fault in others. Whether the fault is in other or not, that is a different thing totally. But the thing is, such faults exist in yourself. That's first thing. And second thing is, if you want to really look for the good in others, you'll have to endeavor in that way. I mean, you'll have to really, work hard to look for that. So generally, our faults are only more strongly prominent in our personality, so we tend to capture the fault more quickly than the good. That's the basic point in which he says. Anyway, I think I'll leave this one. It is not this thing. Yeah, so I think this part I want. So actually, the Vatsasura, I'm not speaking too long. I think I'll just summarize this part very quickly and go to the next. So first, the main thing we said here was that in juvenile age, everyone is prone to doing mischief, and that has to be curtailed. That can be curtailed only with a good relationship. And importance of giving time from the parents, teachers, and importance of not getting attracted to passion too much, by the hearing process is important. And you can actually care for children by giving time, attention, and guiding them, giving the right example in 6:16. I think all these things I've already spoken of. I'll go next quickly a little bit. I'll come back to this a little later at the end, maybe I can revise. The next one is an important one. This is a little serious point, so we need to again pay attention. He talks of Nishtha, Bhakti, Samskaras and moods. So again 4 points. First he says is the importance of the platform of Nishtha Bhakti for every devotee, sadhaka. So he says that in the sadhana bhakti process, we all know there is Ado Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti and then Nishtha. It comes after Anartha Nivritti. So he says that Nishtha is the platform where intelligence takes control over the mind. That's the basic point. That means now, he says, until any devotee reaches Nishtha Bhakti platform, we are always susceptible to be overcome by the influence of our mind and senses. Any time the mind and senses can draw us and we will keep jumping here and there. We don't have control on ourselves. That's the point. Unless when I reach Nishtha, we don't have control on ourselves. Just like so, if we are all experiencing that problem in our life, that हमको हमारे ऊपर ही नियंत्रण नहीं है, it basically means that they are still struggling a lot with our anarthas. They are not living it. But he's saying at the level of Nishtha, one experiences a freedom. A freedom in such a way that one is not obliged to act on desires. That means, so Nishtha doesn't mean that Nishtha doesn't mean that negative vibrations are not coming within. It is coming, but you are able to say no to it very easily. That means in the thinking process you can very easily say मेरे को नहीं चाहिए. The ease with which you are able to kind of drive away the anarthas is considered the indication of Nishtha Bhakti having been achieved. So he says that that's why Nishtha Bhakti is a very important platform in Bhakti, and only when a devotee reaches that, our Shastras and Rupa Goswami, everybody explains that advancement is very rapid after that. Until then, advancement is very sluggish and very slow moving. So that's Prabhupada's purport as well. As lust and desires disappear from the heart of a devotee, he becomes more attached to the service, and by such attachment, he becomes free from material contamination. Any good comment on this? Nishtha and... Okay, so now we'll go a little bit more into the technical analysis of that. Yeah?
How it is applicable to children parenting, this discussion?
Yeah, it comes. That's the next thing. I'll just complete this. It comes. Now I'm going to the Samskaras. His definitions are very good. He defines Samskaras as an impression on gross and subtle bodies, which of course we all know. It is generated by experiences of various kinds. And Samskaras basically alter the course of life by influencing our decisions, by forming dimension of value in our judgments. So this is a very interesting definition. We'll have to spend some time on it. I know that at this point we are having a lot of challenge because of the children have also got a bit restless and
They are destroying your Vrindavan.
Monkey party.
The garden was not so beautiful, so the attachment is less to it. You must have packed some white off, no?
They must have found Sita.
Per head 2
Yeah, so we come to Achyut Keshav Prabhu's question of why samskaras are how well connected to children. But for that, some children are being quiet for that. So Vaishnavi, can you please help us by being a little bit silent? Is it possible? Sorry. My son also refused to me and I am She's staring at me what this guy is telling me. Unable to understand. Okay. He defines samskaras as those which have a power to alter the course of our life. See, try to understand what this means. That means our life's journey is in our control. Why is it important? Many times, we have this horoscope and all these problems. Horoscope mein aisa bola hai, aisa hi hoga. Aisa nahi hai. Your samskaras alter your course of your life. Remember that. How do they alter? They influence your decisions. How do they influence? They form certain dimensions of value in your judgment. So when you judge something, they form a dimension of value. I mean, they try to give a particular value.
How you evaluate?
Yeah, how you evaluate certain things before you arrive at certain judgment. And who does this? The samskaras do that by influencing your decision. Hence, they alter the course of your life. So the whole point is, samskaras are considered even more important in this from this context than just our past karma. Which put a particular astrological map in our life. You understood? Because based on your samskara, you will decide how to act. So, the free will is very strongly there in it. So, why samskara is important for children, we'll directly go into this. So, he quotes from this particular, I think this I spoke last time, but I'll tell again nevertheless. So, this is a Nature magazine published in the US. They have said something which our Shastras say, so we are talking about it. So this magazine basically says that growth patterns in developing brain detected by using continuum mechanical tensor maps. This is the name of the paper published. What it basically says is a very simple thing. Any activity done in puberty, they say has maximum impact on the person's life. So any activity a girl does between 11 to 16 and a boy does from 13 to 18. If it does any activity, it seems it connects certain neural connections in the brain. And once those connections are formed, whole life, those activities become very easy to keep replicating, whether it is positive or negative. So the paper gives an example that if some child in that age learned singing, let us say, then those neural connections of how to sing and how to develop ragas get connected. And then later, even for 20 years he never sang. At the age of 40 he starts singing, he'll pick up very quickly. But in that age, if you did not connect it, those neural connections you did not make, at the age of 40 you sit with your harmonium and try to learn Sarigama, you find very difficult. So connection bana nahi tha wo time pe. That's the point he's saying. So this is applicable in the positive and the negative domain. Negative domain also, if somebody got attached to certain things in that age, negative influences, those connections are made for life now. And if he becomes a devotee later, he will have to struggle with that anartha almost his whole life. Because those connections he made early on in his puberty. So that is the connection. So why this is important is because that age is considered the most powerful in terms of giving samskaras. And that is connected to your Nishtha Bhakti. You ask the question, right? How is it connected to children? He says that if we want our children to actually achieve Nishtha Bhakti and all that stuff, we have to be extremely careful about them in this particular age. That age is the most important age.
According to Vedic understanding, it's even earlier, right? It doesn't have to wait all the way up till puberty.
It does not. That he also says, wait. No, wait. No, this is the most important direct in samskara, but he says that 4 years before that it becomes important. He explains why. See, they have done research in Gurukul. He says that it is, age only. No, the connections are that only. No? Because till 7 only education starts. That's what we learn. Ye to 11 se baat kar. Not okay. Your heart only is formed at 10 days. 9.5 months. 11 se makes sense. So he says that before that the age is important so that the relationships are developed properly. Otherwise, suddenly he is saying that no child will start listening to the teacher like that. In that context, the previous is important. Okay, so going more into this, so he is saying that rewarding impressions of favorable activities are beneficial. That means if you do any favorable activity, good activity, and there is a rewarding impression in your system, that's a beneficial samskara. Disagreeable impressions of favorable activities are detrimental. That means something good, अगर उसका disagreeable impression आ गया तुम्हारी system में, we see this many times. We see this also sometimes many adults also, you know, they have had some terrible impression about some very good thing. वो पूरा life पर उसके साथ ही struggle करते रहते हैं. Haven't we seen that? Even with grown-ups, you know, who come to our temple and all, because they got a disagreeable impression of a good activity. And similarly, he says, if you have a satisfying impression of an illicit activity, then what is it? Extremely detrimental. That means, like Prabhupada says, the greatest enemy of the sense enjoyer is the enjoyment that he brings to the sense enjoyer. That's the greatest enemy of the sense enjoyer. Because a disagreeable impression of illicit acts, if somebody enjoys and he feels very frustrated in that, that is considered God's mercy only. That is considered very beneficial. That's considered Krishna's mercy. If Krishna is merciful to us, he makes us frustrated in our enjoyment. But if Krishna is not merciful to us, he allows us to enjoy illicit acts. So that is how it is seen. This is samskara. Beneficial, detrimental, detrimental, beneficial. So these are the 4 types of samskaras that exist in all of us. And we are all struggling in our life based on all these things. So that's what he says. Right? Make sense? Any question or comment here? I think it's very simple and easy. Little technical, but yeah. So of course, Garbhadhan and Samskar he talks about, but I may maybe talk very brief or skip it, but okay, I'll just talk briefly. So he talks of Garbhadhan and Samskar, though I think it's not applicable to where many of us sitting here because, but still we'll say about it. He says that the traditional way in which Garbhadhan and Samskar was done was, he quotes that, right from before marriage or even just after marriage, the couple had to contemplate what kind of qualities their children should have. They had to contemplate and develop that themselves by doing tapasya and austerity. And if they would do that, then those qualities would come in the child, otherwise it would not come. This is a fact. So he quotes many things, Shastra for it. He talks about Vasudeva Devaki, who did tapasya and all that. Yeah? Kunti and Pandu did it. You see the Mahabharata, it's very interesting. It is not that Kunti simply calls one demigod and gets child. 1, 2 years they did tapasya and Pandu also did tapasya. One may wonder, Pandu ko to kya hai tapasya karne ka? Demigod comes and gives Kunti. Hum Pandu mein jo mein rehte to kuch nahi karte. But if you see the Mahabharata, Pandu does tapasya. You know, so every child they do tapasya and then they invite the demigod. That qualities, they contemplate on the quality. Yeah, correct. What is saying is right. They would contemplate. हमको भी एक बहुत बलवान पुत्र चाहिए. एक, you know, this Dharmaraj जैसा. Yeah, they contemplate. They do this both these things. So he gives many examples of that. So it is there in our Shastra. So this is how samskara was. You know, so it's all connected. So samskara is connected. So that Garbhadhan is connected to this and this is connected to this. Right? Yeah, now this is very interesting. Modes in consciousness. So this is again very technical. So you need to pay attention. Yeah, I am going to finish. Why you are giving me next time? 2 more slides. That's all.
No, in the previous slide.
Yeah, I'll cover that because there is some connection to this slide. So I'll just cover it. I'll go back. I'll revise everything again. He talks about modes. Very interesting way he talks about. He says Tamoguna samskara has been you enjoy through knowledge acquiring senses. Rajoguna samskara means you enjoy through working senses. So I got this, it's a very nice definition. That means he gives like example. Watching cricket on television is tamoguna. Playing cricket is rajoguna. Understood? That means when you want to enjoy through your knowledge acquiring senses, that is considered tamoguna because you are most lazy at that time. That means I want enjoyment through my eyes, nose, ear, tongue and skin without doing much activity. Working senses are inert. Only knowledge acquiring senses are active. That's considered tamoguna. So this whole thing of watching the screen is considered tamoguna pleasure derivation. Because you're sitting like, I said an example, right? You're watching cricket on TV. Which suppose we wonder. That's considered tamoguna. Sitting and watching and having fun from that. Gratifying working senses is considered rajoguna. So the rajoguna man is active. He is enjoying through the voice, hands, legs, anus and genitals. He is actually doing something and getting enjoyment. This fellow is a lazy fellow, ignorant fellow. And Sattvagun enjoyment or samskara means active internally. That means here neither the knowledge acquiring senses nor the working senses are active. Internal senses are active. Internal sense means he goes back to the first point that he made. Mananam is active and relationships are active. Internal. His relationships with his subordinate superiors are active and he is always contemplating what he has learned. So he says that from a person who is passionate, from his perspective, Sattva and Tamogun both are similar. Because a person who is passionate, he is feeling that अरे मैं इतना काम कर रहा हूँ ये तमोगुणी वाला ऐसे बैठे सोफा पे और ये सत्वगुण he doesn't know सत्वगुण ये भी ऐसे बैठे. So from the passionate perspective, goodness and ignorance are very similar. But the difference is that the tamoguni fellow samskaras are those where he is gathering happiness through his knowledge acquiring senses, and the other fellow is through internal senses. Right? So it's a very nice classification. So he's saying this as the key, you can understand every samskara to be sattva, rajas or tamas. If somebody is doing anything, you can immediately classify. इसको main pleasure इससे कहाँ मिल रहा है? Is he getting the pleasure through relationships, contemplation and deep thought process? Then it is sattva. Is he getting pleasure through doing some dynamic activity? Of course, if it is engaged in the service of Krishna, it is different. I mean, we are not talking about that now. One second, like for example, somebody is doing kirtan, so somebody will say, "तो voice use नहीं voice नहीं, वो तो अलग है, वो अलग domain है वो. हम यहाँ सिर्फ material चीजों की बात कर रहे हैं." Yes, Madhu. Consciousness.
Occupation. If one's occupational position is like that, when somebody is engaged in work and menial work, if somebody is engaged in menial work in the same time, in menial work, so one can do manan also. So, and
of course, one has to do hearing first. Shravanam kiya to mananam ho.
Shravanam is there, and after that one is engaged in menial services, and it's not that one person can all the time in goodness only, active internally. It can't.
Yeah, I know that.
It can't be.
Yeah, I know that, na. That is understood.
One person can't be active internally 24 hours a day.
Absolutely not. So that is why.
Not there,
No. So that's why what they say is it's not that.
No, even one
See,
person
please try to understand. So once again, it doesn't mean that Sattva fellow means he will not engage in knowledge and working. When we say ignorance, that's why I said ignorance means gratifying knowledge acquiring senses. Gratifying means enjoying. You understood in a material way. Now, for example, a devotee also needs all kinds of. You are doing garlands, you are doing this, that, you are teaching, you are doing so many things. That is not considered rajas and sattvas. That is engaging it properly.
Every person is a combination of all of them.
That is there, but still, that is not technically considered rajoguna. You understand? Like when somebody is worshipping the deity, उसमें working sense is involved. It's not a rajoguna activity. This we are specifically talking about the negative samskaras. Specific है.
But
Yeah.
can be active internally while doing menial services also, na?
Yes.
But from other person it seems that he is working. Somebody is working, but actually that is.
So what is the question? I don't understand. That's fine. So what is the question?
So it's not about appearance.
It is not about that. That's why here we are saying gratifying, enjoying.
He's not enjoying.
Enjoying. This is specific to enjoyment of working senses, not engaging the working senses. You say कि झाड़ू मार रहा है तो it is a passion. It is not like that.
If somebody is mopping and somebody is active internally, then
Yes,
Then he is
that is
goodness.
sattva guna only. The external body is engaged as a matter of fact. You are not gratifying it. ये शब्द बोलो मत माता जी. Gratifying लिखा है यहाँ पर. Gratifying मतलब somebody is engaging the working senses for his personal sense gratification. Finding pleasure in that from a personal body perspective. This is all related to other things actually. Yeah. Clear na? Yeah.
Madhav was once saying about as we grow, specifically in the context of subcontinent, we tend to get attracted towards cricket. So you're saying for boys, tend to get attracted towards cricket. Who gets attracted?
Everybody.
Boys.
Boys.
As they are growing up. So you're telling, if at all this happens, we should encourage very prominently the boy to go and actually play it out and see how difficult it is to go and play at such a high level, rather than just be a commentator and just enjoying watching and just making comments.
Yeah.
This getting to that passion is much more important. You should actually go out and see the hard work which is
Yeah. It's considered superior to this.
At least there will be some benefit to the health and all that.
Yeah. It's considered important. It's considered better. Because from there only you can see. He says very clearly, nobody can jump from Tamoguna to Sattoguna. You have to go through the process only. So suppose somebody is in Tamoguna, you have to go through. So one thing we understand, going back to that, screen and the enjoyment through that is the most dangerous thing actually. In modern times, that is a real challenge. Screen and enjoyment through screen. Screen enjoyment means that video देख के हैं उसमें मजा आता है. That is completely in the domain of Tamoguna. You understood that?
Previously, when children of the same age come together, they would talk a lot. Now we see.
Oh, in our society, my God. Previously, in our society, only 10 years back, we have seen youth. When they come together, they would talk, laugh, crack jokes. Nowadays, they all bring their devices and they're exchanging their whatever clips they have via Bluetooth. So we see them, 10 of them every day sitting and they're quiet now. Because they're not talking only, they're only pressing the button and seeing. ये video सुनो, ये video लिखो. And remember, devotees are no exception to this. Devotee kids are also doing the same thing only. They're doing the same thing only. I had a chance recently, sometime. There were some 3-4 of our devotee kids. They were going somewhere, so I had a lift. So they drove me down somewhere. Oh my God, the whole journey,
The age was?
The age was 17 to 19. And they are all devotees, they're 16 down, some of them I know initiated. Whole time they were fully into exchanging their, songs and movies that they had on their devices with each other. नहीं कुछ लॉस विलेज नहीं प्रॉपर बॉलीवुड का मूवी No, I also thought like that initially. But as I was hearing the discussion, I understood. I was wondering how they are able to adjust it, Chatting 16 rounds and then doing this also. One of their parents was also there. So I was asking the child also, beta तेरा 16 वाला हो गया क्या बोला? उसका हो गया ऐसा मेरे हो गया ऐसा. यही काम किया. Exchanging. 16 के बाद. Why loss? See, that is because I tell you why it has happened.
Overexposure to Krishna consciousness.
No, it is not overexposed. It is not like that also. I tell you what is the greatest thing here? They have learned how to adjust Krishna consciousness in this. वो समझ गया दोनों साथ में लेकिन actually साथ में हो ही नहीं सकता. Dude, I was getting very नहीं सर आपको भी सुना रहे थे क्या मुझे सुना रहे थे उनकी गाड़ी थी ना बाबा मैं तो गेस्ट था उधर उनका एक्सचेंज चल रहा है ना प्रोग्राम कि इसका गाना है उसका गाना है लेटेस्ट है वो है बीच में भी यही बोल रहे थे इसका एक ट्यून है हरे कृष्णा का वो भी एक्सचेंज कर रहे थे ये सब चल रहा है yeah actually when I see all that I really feel that as an institute as an organization we are very young we have not understood how to grow our families समझे नहीं हम लोग को कुछ it will take a lot of time to generate it.
We had asked one social expert he found 2 flaws in ISKCON. One was that we don't have a plan to systematically raise our children and one more what
you don't have a proper engaging everybody people are connected on everything.
Learning something is nowadays students, 10th, 12th standard students
or someone is learning dance like this, but it also requires some passion. So it will come in a mode of goodness or
No, one second. See, try to understand. What kind of dance are you talking?
classical dance.
That is very good. See, because please try to understand. I am not saying you should not engage your working and knowledge acquiring senses. You should engage it in the suitable way. So, हर एक चीज को engage करने का suitable way. If somebody say I want to learn Bollywood dance, then there is problem because उसमें वो music ये वो सब वो it arouses that passion in it. But the classical Samaran Kathak or something glorifying Krishna, Taye, Yashoda, there is one song, how Yashoda and Krishna are dealing, they are learning how to dance. It engages your working senses and at the same time that is not considered a passionate activity. Yes, sir. इस शब्द बोल नहीं सकते हम.
That is never Krishna category.
Yeah? Yeah, please.
So our children understand that few things are not good, and they know also. But that attraction is there because others, some other children, some other devotee parents gives the child some gadget. And so there is a lot of attraction just to use it sometimes to experience.
So that is why you know in that we talk about the Waldorf and this and that, na, it has to be substituted by activities that are neutral at least at some ways.
No, but we actually don't use smartphones. But our son is literally handling that
He quotes Bhagwan Prabhu uses, why don't you use?
Oh my God.
No, but yeah, that's what. So that's why it's very important. Well, that is why we go back to this. We cannot forget this. Relationship. Working hard, engaging the body is important. Important है वो. ये एज से important रहता है. वो हाथ पैर engage होने चाहिए. Possible नहीं है.
स्कूल जाएगा भाई ये क्या हो हार्ड वर्क करेगा. भी हार्ड वर्क यूज
Lifestyle.
Hard work does not necessarily only mean sweeping, mopping. In general, certain learning some skills or something which involve hand and feet and getting an attraction to that.
No free time.
You understood now? Hey, once again, you were speaking about it, huh? You heard that seminar where they say which age, what kind of things are important. क्या है वो बताओ जरा.
Like for physically
Boys, yeah,
we learn carpentry, then work on the farm,
Screw nut bolt.
work on the farm, then
We may say it is not possible for us, but then we have to bear the consequence. फिर हमारे बच्चों स्मार्टफोन किसे
I
देखेगा?
cannot ask this question. She answers.
By knowing, nobody can understand much. Even me and you cannot understand. How can a child understand? They have to be engaged. See, the solutions are standard. We may not be able to implement a solution. Like when we spoke about Mananam, Prabhu said, Prabhu, time in a Mananam. But that does not mean that the consequence will not be there. Consequence जो है वो है. Ultimately, it is always better to be in knowledge rather than in ignorance. Saying that everything is fantastic. At least you know why things are happening.
At least you will be positively frustrated.
If we are in water, we will get wet. The water is like so much influence of this modern gadgets. And even if the child knows that I am not supposed to use it, but still so much attraction is there, that desire is there to eat. And it's not that, I mean, he will not have interest for carpentry, that will also
No,
be
that's
there.
why.
But even if we give
Yeah,
them
understood that. No. That's why this particular thing, importance of activities in puberty and early puberty. What they say is, a child should be exposed to things with hands and feet, which something where he has an interest in. See, सबको किधर तो interest रहेगा हमारा. Every child will have something. Somebody will be interested in singing. Not that everybody will look carpentry. Somebody will be interested in singing. Some girl will be interested in dance. Something there. That faculty has to be aroused at that age. That acts as a nice positive channel for engagement. And if that positive channel is there, they will be busy in that. If they are not going to be busy in that positive channel, then they will look for that lazy enjoyment only. It's an inevitable fact of life. So we have to do it nevertheless. That's it. How we do it, we have to see. I know there are challenges. I'm not claiming that every has a solution.
Just like we talk about
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, Prabhuji.
It will play Prabhu some role.
Yeah, it will play.
Though what happens is we are suddenly talking about society and cultural setup and a sustainable model for to be able to practice Krishna consciousness. And I know we should not mix these two things. I'm not doubting that principle or against that principle. But what I'm saying is, if we start emphasizing the container aspect a lot, the sustainability or the suitability or the conducive environment aspect a lot, then it will only leave us with frustration at times, because there are only some things we can do in that regard.
Yeah, I know. So, basically the focusing on hearing and chanting principles. So that means the hearing process. So that also
be reinforced. Otherwise it will leave us frustrated, because there is only little we can do to change it. Like, I very clearly remember the counselor's picnic. Narayana made one point which really struck me. He said what? He said, if a grahastha, if all he wants is to somehow maintain himself and he is a fool that he is in the city, he should go to village. On the other hand, if a brahmachari wants to go to village, it is not very good, because the brahmachari rather he can, because he anyway has minimized his material life. So whether he is in a city or he is in a village, he does not have that many material anxieties and tension. He is just living for preaching. If a grahastha, if he is not preaching, let's say, if he is not tangibly contributing to the movement of Prabhupada, then actually he is unnecessarily harming himself by staying in city. Then he might as well, because he has only created a big material thing around him, and he is taking so much struggle and anxiety, then he should actually go to village. Yeah. And I really like that point. What do you say about that? Correct, na? Because the material life here is really impossible. I mean, in city it has really become too tight. Even if I want to protect my home in some way, the moment they go outside, they are seeing so many other things, it becomes...
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to see what best you can do. So, see, please remember, any topic, the goal is not to understand. See, we should never adopt the 0-1 approach. Either I do everything or I don't do anything.
Mind tuning. To the extent
you have to see how much you can do. He is talking obviously from the idea very good perspective. The standard is there. So we say, okay, ये कर सकते हैं, तो कर सकते हैं. जो कर नहीं रहे, उसमें अगर हम नहीं कर रहे हो, उसका ये परिणाम होगा, उसको हमको डीलिंग करना पड़ेगा. ये इसका ज्ञान होना चाहिए. उतना होना चाहिए. That is important, right?
We can make conscious efforts whenever there is a possibility.
So Prabhupada's room conversation. See, Prabhupada's room conversation in this context. Unless the means are perfect, end will not be perfect. 9th May 1977. In this context of Gurukul education, when somebody is asking, if we don't have the right way of giving samskaras, will we still get good children somehow or the other? Master Prabhupada's answer to that. Show this one here. Acharya. Unless the means are perfect, end is not going to be perfect. So don't expect any magic, Prabhupada says. So that he has quoted here. So basically the point is that samskaras are meant to give us the right desires for purification, and of course these are little simpler things, but consciousness influences our body. So diseases, everything comes from consciousness only, or mantras impel subtle body to act and affect gross body, etc. Anyway, I'll not go into that. That's something.
The importance of this knowledge and awareness is that whenever there is a possibility of making choice, we should make the right choice.
That's it. Okay, so let's look at it very briefly once again. Nishtha Bhakti. So Nishtha Bhakti A was important because intelligence takes control over the mind. Unless we reach the platform, what happens? Mind and senses overpower us, and anytime we can be swept away. I mean, we continuously keep being swept inside and out basically. We will not be swept away totally, but. And then this we saw, what is samskara, beneficial, detrimental, and how acts in puberty are extremely powerful. We saw briefly about Garbhadan samskara and addictions. And finally we saw about Tamogun, Rajogun and Sattvagun, how they are different. How they are different in how you look for happiness. In Tamoguna you look for happiness through eyes, ear, nose, sense and lazy. Go on to move only. So TV is the best example of Tamoguni happiness. इसे बराबर समझते हैं. TV Tamogun में बैठे बैठे enjoyment है. आँख कान के लिए सब के लिए. कुछ भी नहीं करने. Rajoguni means you have to actually do something to get enjoyment. Sattva means internally you generate enjoyment. So again, that does not mean that Rajoguni, Tamoguni is not doing action. But his main source of happiness is coming from within. Activity is doing because body को engage करना ही पड़ेगा तुम. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, nobody can remain inactive. That's not the point of it. Right? I think this was a very important point.
Priti Vedanta makes the statement, passionate person considers D and I similar.
Yes. He says that anybody who is in passion, he sees goodness and ignorance as same lazy fellow. तो उसके हिसाब से दोनों काम नहीं कर रहे जाते. एक अंदर ही अंदर सुख प्राप्त कर रहा है और एक ऐसा लेजी बैठे बैठे सुख प्राप्त कर रहा है. तो दोनों सिमिलर लगते हैं उसको. पैशनेट आदमी को समझता नहीं क्यों है ऐसा.
और उसको लगता है कि विदाउट वर्किंग
Yeah, there are many passionate people also, like when they come to a general ISKCON process of, hearing and being very, I'm wondering how it is possible like that. समझता नहीं ऐसा कैसा होगा? Correct? Right? Last part, we'll end very soon now. I think fortunately I have only 2-3 more slides. So I'll go over it very quickly. Process of purification. His definitions are class actually. He defines anarthas as seeds of unwanted desires in chitta. In our chitta, whatever unwanted desires are there, that is anartha. Chitta is nothing but the seed of contaminated consciousness, and vasana or material desire comes from anartha. So basically it says that once you are in a situation that corresponds to a particular anartha, you are affected by that situation. He says that suppose if somebody has an anartha, too much weakness towards the opposite sex, that is a general anartha, but when he is in a situation, those things are awakened, like that. So he gives the example of Shukadeva Goswami, one who did not have an anartha. So even when he was naked and the woman were naked, taking bath or whatever, nobody felt anything, because there was no desire, so no vasana, nothing got awakened, everything was perfect and fine. Fantastic example. So not for us. Darling, I'll go ahead. किसी को question भी नहीं हुआ मुझे जल्दी आगे बढ़ो अगर So the last thing is about how to correct. This is very interesting. How to correct. So he's saying the purpose of correction. He's saying there are two ways. So he's saying the purpose of correction is to recognize what a person has done, why they did it, what were the circumstances, and how they should have done instead. So he's saying you can correct, especially a child, either by power or by influence.
It is recording.
So he says power means dam dadi karke chilla ke maar ke power. Influence means by your presence and by your respect. So he is saying correction by power is short term, immediate benefit. तुरंत आदमी चुप हो जाते हैं. मैं बोल रहा हूँ चुप बैठे. But influence means by your presence and by your influence and because of the love for you, the child or the student decides to improve. This thing should always go for influence and not for power. And the levels of correction are 5 in increasing order. That is the last point. First is in a jolly mood. Second is verbally. Third is engage them in physical work so that he starts contemplating. उसको बताओ ये गलत किया तुमने अब ये काम करो बैठ के झाड़ू मारो. So as he does, he start thinking why I did wrong. नहीं वो discussion भी है ना पापा ऐसे नहीं कि झाड़ू मारो. You have to tell him why he went wrong and tell him to think about it and tell him to write a report. What are the things he did wrong? And the fourth is serious restriction and disturbance. Serious restriction means he says, for example, not allowing a person like he says that in Gurukul system, they would tell a child, okay, he cannot participate in this class now. He is out of the whole thing like that. And the last is final thing which is to avoid as far as possible is beating them. So he was saying that there is a difference between girls and boys. Because girls are generally more conscious, so उनको discipline करना easy है, relatively. Boys, it takes more time and effort to discipline them, he says. Girls, he says, are relatively easier to discipline because by nature, women are more conscious about their system and surroundings. So he's saying, but men are not like that. He's saying that the disciplining for boys is, that is why he says that the boy had to be more severely engaged in menial and so many other activities. He's saying girls is relatively easier comparatively because by general he says that they are little more conscious of their situations.
Boys at times, even when they have to be conscious, they are not.
They are not. So you have to work harder with them to ensure that they are rightly corrected. Okay, so that's it. So we come to an end. I think everybody is tired as well and audience come ho gaya automatically. So we just briefly, quickly go over everything. Just to do Maranam once again. So we start with importance of education, Vatsasur, Nishtha, Bhakti, Samskara modes and process purification. Most important thing was the relationship, the first thing, so that we obey and sacrifice. Then Mananam was very important, to achieve B, R and D, that is, to understand how it is beneficial, to understand, to realize and to also deeply, get contemplate, so that even little hearing has benefit. Mananam is a stage that we are all missing in general, by and large. It can be achieved through menial service and through sharing. I think we have to do that. That's one takeaway. This is one takeaway which I wanted. Everybody can remember this Mananam thing as a takeaway. Sharing. And this is also very important takeaway that in negative things at hearing and thinking stage it is important to stop. Seeing, experiencing makes it very intense attachment, very difficult to break later. So all of us also, whatever we have experienced negative, we are generally struggling with that only. What we heard and we stopped, we are not struggling with it. Like Maharaj in one lecture, he says that even devotees in ISKCON, when they would fall down, he says that the devotee who came in 1972, if he was used to some drug, 1990 में अगर उसने भक्ति छोड़ा, he would search for that drug, which he was taking in 1970, which was out of the market. क्योंकि नया drug आ गया latest market. Because he was attached to that, because those connections were made in his system. You know, he had that impression. So that is the power of impressions. Let us all remember. Okay, so see, I also look at it from a very different, in another way. You know, all these topics. I also look at it as you know. I mean, see, our society, ISKCON society. You know, for us to be successful, over several generations, these ideas have to actually solidify and become a part of everyone's life. Honestly, if you read it now, there are many things which even in our generation we have not done very seriously. Like if you see the Edu and Samskaras thing nowadays, such detailed things have come out. And it is not that this was not important, this was very important. But just that, you know, we were all too new to bhakti at that time. When I look myself 15 years when I got married and everything, so many basic things I had to learn actually before going to such things. But over a period of time, it is important for our descendants and you know our generations of devotees to become more fine-tuned in these things. Then only the benefits will start coming. It's a scientific process. You can't say that you know, oh मेरे पास time नहीं है, मैं नहीं कर सकता. ऐसा बोलोगे तो जो है वैसे ही रहेगा.
It will always be emergency.
It will always be emergency scenario. You will be struggling in the same way. See, material world doesn't show compassion to anybody. Let's be very clear. The world of matter is ruthless. And it just cuts you down, that's it. Correct? Now, you do a mistake, we are just chopped off. It's not that Maya is very compassionate. अरे ठीक है बाबा, अच्छा डिवोटी गलती से नहीं किया हो. चल, ऐसा नहीं होता. So I look at it that way also. There is no need to feel too despondent. Because sometimes, many times I have had a discussion with my wife on this. Like when we talk Edu and Samskaras, when we read together, nowadays we feel that अरे एक बार हमने किया नहीं, हमने ऐसा सोचा ही नहीं उस time. You know, in our time. But it's not like that. You have to see, okay. You may have not done that, okay, you ensure that the next generation does it properly. You know, so things start actually improving.
I mean, what
that's
we did
very
was
important.
better than what we would have done had we not come to
Yeah, but then again, see, you were very new, na? See, somebody who came to Krishna was at 20, at 23, how much, see, there is also, see, in Krishna consciousness also, it takes certain years for you to be able to digest and relate to some topic. See, what we are talking now, for example, when you have come in your second year of Krishna consciousness, you cannot relate to it. You have other fundamental issues to your Krishna or Devagoda, Sai Baba. बोलना पड़ेगा ना. Sai Baba का भी clear नहीं हुआ. Sai Baba. So you are stuck with that. So you have to slowly only go. You know, so that's how it is. So sometimes what has happened is what you were supposed to hear at some time, we never heard it only. So all is because हमारा सब emergency धर्म है अभी. सब emergency है. You know. So we have to ensure at least as generations of devotees come up, it will become more natural for them to do everything. That is, I think, very important. Hearing, seeing, experiencing is a very important thing. Remembering and never forgetting Krishna, that was the next thing. Vatsas we spoke in great detail. How, you know, children are susceptible to juvenile tendencies and everything. And they should be careful. Prabhupada's quote on association, especially parent perspective. Attraction, how passion is very beautiful. And it attracts, so one has to be careful with passion, right? We discussed this, and how you need to give time and attention, and set the right example for children. 6 exchanges, I spoke on this system. Nishta's importance, and how Nishta is not achieved. Nishta is not achieved because we have done certain things at certain ages, which have, you know, which are even now derailing our systems, and which are troubling us, which are impressions. So we have to ensure that next generations of people, they learn things properly. Very important. And we spoke briefly on Edu and Samskaras and gratifying senses and everything. Yeah, this was a very important point. I think this I forgot. He's saying the problem with gratifying senses, very nicely defined. He says the problem with gratifying senses is that every time you do it, the next time you need to increase the quality and quantity of agitation of senses to get the same gratification as previously. Right, that means somebody enjoyed in some way. Next time he wants a greater kick. वो उतना नहीं चलेगा उसको. Or that means that's why people get more and more perverted, in their enjoyment. And we see that also nowadays happening. Because you start with something, बाद में वो मजा नहीं दे रहे तुमको और perverted चाहिए, और perverted, and it becomes like till death. So that's the end actually. Death is the end to it. So this is a very important point. At these points and all, he says that as puberty starts, the children should start understanding this. Very important. He says they should start correcting it. So that is where this point comes. They should start at puberty. They should start getting guidance. So the World Group also says everything. Till the age of 11, there is no philosophy to be taught to children. 11 साल तक सिर्फ कहानी बतानी. Philosophy बहुत कम level. Philosophy value के level. Philosophy starts after 12, 13 books. Yeah. Means Atma also you can tell early. What is simple है. Not body also nowadays every child is philosophy. No, not only philosophy in terms of enjoyment, sense enjoyment, service, so many things. Bhagavad Gita philosophy. Yoga systems. You start understanding that age. And that then you have to connect it to the real life. And that is the role of a teacher. To teach the philosophy and connect it to real life. So he says, yeah, so this point is, I think I was telling it here, right? What a gratifying. And then we spoke, this was also very important. Ignorance, passion and goodness, the difference, right? Anathas and how correction is done. I think this I went over quickly because we were short of time. Okay, so basically the whole reference was from the book. In case you are interested, it's a very, very small book. It's only 250 rupees, but I think
Is it still available? So others can also buy.
I don't know if it's available. I brought it when they came. It's a fantastic one. It's full of realizations.
After 25 years.
After 25 years,
3 years he studied books by Prabhupada and Bhaktivedanta. Then he books.
Apparently only 90 pages, but काम बहुत किए. I mean, if I start, I'll tell you honestly, I had to read that 5 times to understand what he is saying. First time I never understood only क्या बोल रहा है नहीं समझ रहा. I have to read it again and again. You can ask her, since I brought in this book, I am reading only this. I am not reading anything. 5-6 times I have to read it to understand theoretically कि क्या बोल रही है.
You was selling this book, so he showed me. I said, you should teach us that. I'm sure he am the person.
It's a very deep book, very, very deep book. It takes a lot of time to understand what he's saying. Each sentence
lot of
forces mana. Forces contemplation. I think that's a very good.
And the perspective which he presents, I have never had to read.
You read it then?
I started, but it was very difficult, so I started studying.
You have to read it 5 times to understand it. 5 बार समझेगा नहीं कुछ क्या बोल रहे नहीं समझेगा.
I read the first chapter 2 times.
5 times you read it.
I also read, but today I understood slowly.
Go back and read again.
Then 5 times you read it to understand. That is how the book is. Yeah. I like it. Thank you. Any question?
Thank you.
Like one of the things which we learned from this session is, okay, we have to stop our children from going to wrong things. Like, yeah. But one thing we also learn ki as Kali is progressing, that we cannot too much restrict also children. Like the point is, if the children want to experiment something, we have to give them bigger space also, to how to balance these
Yeah,
two
so
things.
that has to happen even before. See, the thing is, once a child or anybody has gone past the stage of feeling an attachment to something and they say, now I want to experience it, that is not the time to start acting. The time to start acting is much before. See, that's why 2-3 things were very important. The relationship, the 6 exchanges, the general Sattva-Guna Samskaras that are created, the proper engagement for the body and the system, the importance of the contemplation and the thought processes. These things are to be done from the age of 7. Then you will avoid a situation. You are asking a question where somebody at 12 comes and says, now I want to see this XYZ movie. Now, अभी क्या कर सकते हैं? अभी कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं. टिकट खरीद के देगा उतनी. Because now the child has gone past the stage of that thinking, feeling, and now he wants to will and do something. अभी आप नहीं कर सकते. ये पहले करना चाहिए. Are you understanding that? That is what he is saying. You have to strike it at an earlier point so that this problem doesn't come later, and it is possible. See, the scientific process. Scientific मतलब क्या? follow करेंगे तो बराबर होते हैं ना. That is what science means, right? You understand that, right? That is simple, and it's possible. It's not impossible. Now for that, from where it starts? Ideally, it starts from the time of your marriage. To what kind of qualities you thought of and you cultivated, which you wanted your children to have. वहाँ से शुरू हुआ है वो. You understood? It is so fine if you go back. And then from there it is coming one by one, one by one. So it is not something. So see, that's what you should be aware of. Right? Clear? So at that stage you deal with it in a different way. That's for sure. Yeah. Any other question, comment? Okay. Sorry. I think yeah. We'll just have Hare Krishna chanting for just 5 minutes and we can be.